Hello, I'm Jim Cornell, and this is the WalkingPost.com podcast. WalkingPost.com is the news website dedicated to walking, with all the latest on trails, books, gear, fitness, festivals, events, gadgets, science, and more. Before we start this week, just a reminder about the special offer for podcast listeners of 15% off at 8000kicks.com on their shoes, boots, backpacks and other accessories. Just enter Walking Post 15 at checkout. This podcast is number 21 and it's going out on July the 25th. It is Drowning Prevention Day and it is also Red Shoe Day. I was about to say that I've never had a pair of red shoes until I remember that I did have a pair once when I was at university, a canvas pair that got ruined in the rain. It is Hire a Veteran Day as well, and an odd one, Talk in an Elevator or a Lift Day. Not sure where the nearest one is to me, probably about an hour away. It's also Tunisia Republic Day. A mixed bag of weather this past week with several weather warnings, none of which actually happened. There were a couple of heavy rainstorms, but nothing compared to some of the flash floods that we witnessed in the southwest US. Those can be pretty scary. Oh, and of course the hay fever season continues. Different pollen, same result. As nothing else happened, so as not to bore you, I will move on to who was on the podcast last week, and it was an interview about a new book on women-inspired trails, and we also had a conversation about filter water bottles. This week it's headlamps or headlights and walking in extreme conditions. But of course, first we take a look at some of this week's articles over on walkingpost.com. So it's time for our almost brief recap of some of the headlines of the news articles we had on walkingpost.com this past week. We've almost made it through one of the tough news months, and there are still quite a few to choose from. Cospet launched its Magic Series smartwatches. Maybe they're called Magic Series because if you take it off and leave it somewhere, it will disappear. An adventure trail was launched in Hythe, and the Canadian province of Alberta issued its 2025 Public Land Trail Guide. Definitely lots of places to walk in that province. A new £100,000 fund has been launched to improve paths across Strathclyde, which is kind of like the middle bit and to the west of Scotland. And while there are a few places called Sugarloaf, the one in Michigan is front and centre as a conservation group is looking to preserve its landscape for trails and recreation through a fundraising campaign. In the North York Moors, a new illustrated trail has been launched at Cawthorne Roman Camps. The Summer Valley Walking Festival has returned with an expanded programme for 2025, and you can read all of these and more at walkingpost.com. And that means it's time for the first of this week's guests. Jamie Bowen is the marketing officer at Fenix Light UK, and Fenix makes lights, whether it's a torch, aka a flashlight, or a whole range of headlamps. I met Jamie and some of his colleagues at the outdoor show, and they had some new products, so I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about them, and about lights for walking in general. So I first asked Jamie for a bit of background on the company.
Hi, I'm Jamie. So I'm coming from Fenix, and so Fenix has been around since 2001. So 2001 categorized back to when the first iPod was launched, so many years ago. You're thinking about that time. We do LED lighting. So LEDs did take on a huge surge in popularity because just the invention. I think the first LED, blue one, was invented in 1993, and it wasn't until 1996 that they got developed into what we see today. So Fenix kind of took on this charge of the inventing and came to make personal products that work in the outdoor sector. Lighting wise, they focused on small torches that we still sell today, through to big handheld searchlights, and also head torches that we do in the outdoor market.
You mentioned that the fact that it was like the beginning of the iPods, so that's quite a while ago. There must have been some changes to what you do in that time as well.
Well, so I've only been with the company since 2020, so even COVID was a big change for me. But in terms of how things developed, when they first started, I think my boss said that when he started back in 2007, the brightest, some of the brightest small torches, like big torches, are about 100 lumens. Now the small torches are 100 lumens, and now they go up to, well, our biggest flashlight, I think it's 21,000 lumens. Incredible amount of brightness, and the heat that comes out of those torches is amazing. But they do hit a long distance, and it's perfect for kind of industrial work or search and rescue. There's plenty of market for what we do in different areas.
Right. You tend to think of the market as being walkers and runners, but you just mentioned the search and rescue. There must be a ton of different applications for this.
Yeah, it's amazing. In terms of like over the world, the Fenix brand, they do have some elements of tactical lighting. Over in Europe and in America, there's a big demand for that. Over in the UK, there's less demand for tactical lighting. We find that the biggest sellers for us are the leisure market. So big sellers for us at the moment, sea fishing, because again, people who do sea fishing, they want to see a long distance. Running as well. Running's taking a big thing in the last few years for us as well. As an ultra runner myself, I do get out a lot and I put the products to good use. But if you slow it back down to walking, people do a lot of hiking in the UK. The national parks all across the UK, people do spend their hard-earned holiday going to national parks and exploring those areas.
Is it more of a seasonal thing? Do people buy more in the winter, or is it year round?
Definitely seasonal. We, in terms of our kind of quiet season, summer is our quieter time. But then again, we are seeing it getting busier and busier our summers. The more work to do, more marketing to do. Again, like I say, the ultra runners, they do a lot of running in summertime and they're going through the night. There's people who hike through the night. There's currently an ultra cyclist that we sponsor called Molly Weaver, who is currently cycling around the entirety of the UK coastline. I believe she's up in near Scotland right now. She started in London, so she's done Wales. She's done the other side of Scotland. She's coming down Edinburgh side now, and she should be quickly pegging the route on her bike. And she's going for the night, I believe. And she's all doing that to raise money for the RNLI. So very good cause there. But yeah, so in terms of our seasonability, it is seasonal, but it depends on what they want to do. I guess in the UK, it does get dark at about 4 o'clock in the winter time. Summertime, I think it's we are on the other side of the solstice now, so it is getting darker again now.
How often do you launch new products? Have you got any new products currently?
Yeah, so Fenix themselves, so it's a Chinese-based brand over in Shenzhen, and they're constantly releasing new products. They generally work on a kind of January to December launch scheme with less going in winter. In the Western world, most things Christmas time and that time is very seasonal, so they kind of taper off towards the end of the year, knowing that if there's delays and things like that, they want to have time to release them into. But in terms of new products at the moment, we've got a fair few ones out. This year has been quite heavily on the flashlight market. So we've actually, in this week, we've just launched 2 new flashlights. The week before that, another 2 flashlights. It has all come at once in terms of for ourselves. But they have got several new head torches as well. So at the start of the year, we had a new head torch, the HL18RT V2. So the HL18RT V2, it's quite a lightweight one. Being lightweight, it's perfect for runners, walkers, but it's also got in it, and one thing that we're talking about is kind of what changes in terms of like the lighting market. They've now looked at kind of warm lighting. So my analogy is when you've got a cool white light on your car, you turn the high beams on in fog, you get blinded by the fog. Having a warm light, it helps penetrate through that mist and fog a lot better. So if you're hiking somewhere where the sea mist rolls in and you're like, where am I can't really see. If you put the warm light on, it just penetrates through the light a lot better, and it's a lot easier on the eyes as well. The other new one, which is about to launch with us, it's launched, but it's landing with us on Friday, I believe, which is called the HP12RT. Now, this is our first running-related rear battery box product. Most of our torches, everything's in the head unit, which is great in terms of waterproofing because it keeps all in one place, where if you've got a cable around the back, you've got to take into other considerations. So this is our first running related one. It's got a rear red light on the back for visibility, so people can see where you are. So if you're walking on the fells, so someone can see you from a distance. If you've had an accident, someone can find you. Or if you're walking on the roads, running on the roads, cars can see you. Because the amount of times I've been running along a road and a car hasn't spotted me, it's rather annoying because they're coming far too fast down country roads in their Teslas these days. But yeah, no, some good new headlamps coming along the way. And like I say, flashlight torches as well. They're perfect for people who don't want something on their head.
And I know we're talking again in the middle of the summer, but there are a lot of people that walk or cycle or run at night. What should they be looking for in a headlamp?
Well, the one things that I've been talking to, especially for summer, for example, we've just sponsored a race up in North Wales called the Ultra Trail Snowdonia. So this is one of the UTMB races, and in Snowdonia, there's so much up and down, and you're carrying so much weight with you. Every gram is a gram you've got to carry up and down those hills. So in summertime, when in the UK, south of the UK, it's I guess in Scotland as well, the nights are very short. It means that you don't need that many hours of life of power. So some of our more powerful head torches, which have a very good battery life, you're maybe just carrying a bit more weight than you need. Every gram counts. You might be carrying an extra 50 grams. On that race, you've got to carry a spare head torch plus spare batteries for those head torches as well. That can easily add up to at least, an extra 200 grams that you don't need to be carrying. Where if you went for a lightweight option, you could save on batteries. On the other side, like we're talking about in winter, battery life is key. It is a pain to change batteries if you've got to do it. But if you've got something that can last the entire night, that is a really nice feature to have. It means you don't have to worry about changing batteries, especially if it's bogging down with rain. Electricity and water don't do well together. So
Are most of them rechargeable, or do you still need the good old batteries?
So most of the ones we've got now, they're all rechargeable. The kind of pro end of the ones, they do take a removable rechargeable battery. They're all lithium batteries these days, so they have a lot of power in them. Traditional like alkaline batteries like your AAAs and AA's, they're not that powerful. My best way to describe them is they prefer to work low and slow, so a low output for a long period of time. So your remote control for your TV is prime example. I can't remember the last time I changed my remote control batteries. They just seem to go. But if I put them into a head torch, that's a lot of power you're asking them to draw, and they do suffer. That's why most, in terms of head torches, you see them, they often have them in pairs or triplicate. They work together. It's like a three horses pulling a cart. It's a lot easier for the three of them are doing it than one big horse doing the thing. So that's why lithium batteries, on the other hand, are so much more powerful. They are a bit more riskier in terms of, you might have seen on the news, lithium batteries having safety risks and stuff like that, but they're so safe these days. They're so powerful, but they mean they can do so much more their size capacity. So everything's now lithium. Most of them are replaceable batteries. So on big events, you can just take a second rechargeable battery, just put that in, take it out, put the new one in. So it means that you can just keep going through the night. And that's why, for example, again, the ultra marathon market for us has been quite strong recently, because people know it's a compact unit and they can take a small battery that is quite compact, and they don't have to faff with like trying to put three AAAs in a battery. But we do some torches that do have a lithium like battery block. So the one I was showing you earlier, the HL18R TV2, it has a battery block in it, but you can put AAAs in the back of it as well. So if you're doing something where, again, you need some spare batteries, but you, like for example, a race that says you need to have spare batteries or you need to take them with you, you don't need to go and buy a new powerful battery. You can just take some AAAs, and because you don't imagine you'll be using them, but they're there just in case. So there's alternatives, which is good.
And you mentioned when you were running and vehicles, I imagine that as well as the fact that you can see better with them, also really useful to be seen as well.
That's very key. Like saying being seen by someone. I live down here in South Wales in the Vale of Glamorgan, and so kind of some of the main roads are even treacherous. Like there's a section of our road where it's the only 60-mile limit on the road in I think if at least good for 4 miles, but it's the only section of the road where the pavement runs out. So you've got to cross around the pavement and people can't see you. They're just like, oh, I've been driving at 20 or 30 for such a long time. Oh, I've got 60. And they floor it. You're thinking, hi, I'm still here on the road. But when you're running down the country lanes that you think are considered safer, people still charge down those like there's no tomorrow. Cars have gotten a lot faster these days, bigger cars. I'm sure we've all been seen by a Range Rover or, the Chelsea tractor, as they call them, try and get out of the way. They're just so wide now. Having prior warning of you're there is so important. So even if it's like, for example, when we're running down a road, we'll like make sure we light up a bend on a corner well, so a car can see that we're coming and they think, oh, it's a car coming. And then they're like, oh, it's a runner. It's one of those things that safety is so important these days.
And it is having one at the back of the headband useful as well?
Yeah, so like saying, this is actually the first one that we've had that it's got a rear light on the headband itself. Most of the running ones are what we call unibody, and that's all in the front. But we do have a little kind of a clip light. It is designed to be a rear bike light. So The package comes with like a seat post mount for cyclists, but we use it when you can clip it onto the back of your running pack, so then people can see that you're coming there, and that's very useful for people to see because it's got different flashing modes and things, so people are drawn to your attention, and it's red light as well, so people can see you.
How useful for walking are torches or flashlights if you're in North America?
The biggest when people talk to me is dog walking. A lot of people walk their dogs, they take them up like on the local moor or they'll just to give them a good run in the evening. But if you've got anything like, I know people have a lot of spaniels these days, and spaniels, they're working dogs, they have a lot of energy and sometimes they run off. You need to be able to see them. So having something powerful that does have a distance on it is very useful because you can see where the little ones run off to. But also you need something that's usable. And sometimes when people talk to me, oh, what flashlight should I get? I go to them, well, you don't want to be holding a tactical flashlight because most tactical flashlights are all kind of done by like a thumb grip. So you activate it like that, and it's, for those listening to the podcast, I know visual's not a great thing, but everything is operated by the thumb, and it means you've got to hold it, what I call like a dagger, and it means you've got to hold your hand there, or you've got to rotate the torch around to do it, and it's not suitable for most people. You want something that's just a standard kind of torch thumb on and off. So that's what I always say to people, what are you using it for? In most cases, hiking and things like that, you just probably want a standard torch grip because it's just easy to use, easy to carry. You can hang it down by your side. You're not having to kind of actively use it in this kind of prime position. They have their uses in the markets they're there for, but having a really simple torch sometimes is the best option.
Back to the headlights again, is there are a lot of them adjustable in terms of the brightness and also being able to change the angles of them?
Yeah, so a lot of them now, I think all Fenix head torches now, they've got multiple brightness modes, very simple to use. I think we were discussing before that you've got a head torch that's not particularly very powerful and like that, and like it's quite complicated to use. Most of our torches are very simple. It's one button per light, and then you just tap to change the modes, and they can go up to several brightness levels. And then they can adjust downwards, they can tilt, so you can aim at your feet. You've got other little features in them. So some of the new ones have got whistles in the headbands. So if you need it for an SOS situation, you've got it there. The standard headbands, they have like adjusters like you've had before, but on the running ones, so the T models, they've got a ratchet style system. This is a ratchet style system that allows you to tighten and release the headband as you see fit. So it's really nice for quick comfort and fitting. I think that's the biggest difference with Fenix. A lot of the things they're designing are about the user. If you think about kind of the technology behind torches these days, development these days is the new LEDs, it's new battery types, making LEDs more efficient. What can brands do to do it? It's about the user at the end of the day. What makes it usable for the user to be? And that's often what will sell a product. For example, I always had the idea, if the iPod, I say we were talking about when Fenix started in 2001, the iPod had first launched. But if you'd made the iPod designed by an engineer, that would be a cube or a square, because rectangle, because that's how an engineer would design things. Everything can be bolted on at right angles is perfect for engineering, where design and user comfortability is what makes products unique and design focused.
You were mentioning the one that I have is very relatively old and clunky, and when you're pressing the buttons on your head, you have no idea what mode you're selecting. It's one of those that's why I guess ease of use is so important, is because you get what you want instead of guessing.
That's very important as well. And like, especially if you've been doing a long hike, like if you're doing like Hadrian's Wall, something like that, and you're tired, when you're tired, your brain doesn't work as well as things. So I did a 100-mile run back in 2022, I think it is now, along the south coast of Wales. And tell you, when you get through to kind of like 36, I think what 32 hours, so you get about like 26 hours in, your mind starts going a bit, and anything that makes your life easier you want. You don't want something that's complicated to use. Sometimes it's just simple as a button to turn it on and then tap through the modes. If you've got to like get an app out, something complicated like that, it makes it more difficult than it needs to be.
The other thing that I think I've found, I've had 2 or 3 different ones over the years, and it's also very difficult, especially in a colder climate, having lived in Canada and now living in Scotland. When it gets cold, you also want to have a hat over the top of it, and some of them are very difficult to maneuver if you put a hat on.
Yeah, it's like adjustment, it's like a very big thing. Like, we're talking to people about kind of having to use the old-fashioned straps, and you've got to slide them out and stuff like that to get the fit, put it on, oh, it's not right, take it off. Like that's where these ratchet systems are very good, because you can just untie a bit, put it on, retighten it to exactly to the fit. And they started, especially with the running ones, they're doing kind of a single headband around it. They're thinking about, for example, women with ponytails. Always the problem is if you've got a single over headband, where you're going to put your hair, you've got the side, you're going to put into bunches and stuff like that. A single one is a nice kind of way around it, but you still got to be able to spread that weight evenly and not have it all front loaded, which is always a kind of an issue with anything on your head. And like we talk about winter as well, things like if you're wearing gloves in winter and things like, you've got to be able to use the torch if everything's like really close together and you can't do it. I think like some brands have like a sliding mechanism on top, and it's like, can you get the purchase on the sliding mechanism? If you're wearing gloves, you've got to think about usability. My one kind of tip for anyone who's going out adventuring like this winter and things like that is know your kit.
What kind of innovations are there in
the lighting market?
Yeah.
So in the lighting market right now, we've seen some really good things, not in terms of really the head torches at the moment, but in the flashlights. They've released these two models late last year. The first one, the LD45R, that had quite a unique focusing system. Most people, when they think of focusing torches, they see kind of like a mechanical, you slide it, twist it, things like that. It changes the way the reflector is. But what this was, it had a deep reflector in it. Well, it has in it, deep reflector, so it can cast a long distance. But then it has a electronically generated gauze that appears on top of it. So like it diffuses that light into a more close-up thing. The beauty of this, though, it means that everything is contained within the torch and there's no waterproofing issues. It's completely IP68 waterproof. So if it gets dropped in a river or anything like that, it will be completely fine. So you've got that ability to change your distance, very quickly, just using kind of it's a rotary switch, like a dimmer switch. The other one, which has done very well recently for us, I remember that the Financial Times picked it up for their Sunday supplement. Essentially, it's a laser torch. So instead of using an LED, just essentially when they create light, it will go spewing off in different angles, and then the reflector kind of controls it back into some sort of useful lighting situation, where the lasers, they take from a very concentrated laser beam and then spread it out to usable light. It means that you get a very tightly focused beam, and it can reach incredible distances of like over 1 kilometer, and it makes it very useful for long distance searching. But these lights, which are known as LEPs, or light excited phosphors, they are useless at close-up stuff because, again, tightly focused beam. So there's a new one, they introduced a ring of LEDs for floodlighting around it, so you've got the near illumination and the far illumination. It's not cheap, it costs over £300, but again, people who need kit like that, or they just fancy a cool toy, that is a very cool piece of equipment to have.
And do you sell directly to the public, or is it all through retailers?
No, so we do a bit of both. So we are the UK distributor of Fenix in the UK. So we have a load of shops up and down the UK. Again, it's very much independence at the moment. We also then sell direct. I think, like we're saying, the online world is for selling things is where the UK is at now. But yeah, we sell direct from our website, phoenixlight.co.uk, as well as on many other platforms. The brand is growing considerably. I think people are now starting to hear about the brand name through walkings, hiking. We're always looking for areas to grow into. Like our latest kind of push is going to be farming, actually, because farmers during lambing season, or just they're trying to find animals coming off the moors, they need good lighting. Yes, they've got their quad bikes and things like now, but nothing beats a handheld torch just to be able to pip up an area and go, right, there it is. So that's one of the areas we're looking into next.
What kind of prices do you look at for a headlamp if you're just a general walker, not looking for something too snazzy?
Well, I'd say, again, like you need to look at, I'm not going to just look at our brand there. You need to look something in terms of light output. You need something, when I say about kind of running 130 lumens is your minimum. So I'd say something about 200 lumens is a very good level, but just check, does it sustain that? So a lot of manufacturers, under what is the test regime for lighting, it goes back several years now, but the regulation called ANSI FL1, it essentially says the runtime has got to be from the light level, say 1,000 lumens on the torch. It's got to do 1,000 lumens for 30 seconds, and then the run times until it hits 10% of that initial output. So back in the days when you had like mag lights, which you used D cells and things like that, it would dim over time. So that's why that test made sense. Now they can kind of a little bit gamify that, or that test, so that it can run at 30 seconds, it can drop down to 30%, run at 30% for its entire lifespan until it hits 10%, but you're not getting what you imagine the box saying 200 lumens. Sometimes that is down to just physics. If you've got a very bright, intense torch and no way to get rid of the heat, you're going to have to step the torch down. that you can't escape heating essentially. But that's with all of our products. We always put the runtime graphs on our website, as well as they come in the user manuals, so you can see exactly what they will do. I'd say you always kind of look for a torch that's, say, if it's got 500 lumens at its maximum, but it's got 200 lumens as its second mode, that's a good one to look at, because that 200 lumens is your bread and butter, and it should be able to last you a good long while. And in terms of price point, 60 to 70 pounds is a good kind of price point these days. I think we all kind of need to get into adjustment of what inflation has done to prices these days. Freddos are no longer 5p. They go up in price all the time. So, but yeah, 60 to 70 pounds is a good kind of price point for your basic level. And of course, as you go up, things do cost more money. Things like high level waterproofing, better materials, batteries, and things like that. But sometimes an investment is always worth it if you can go, I'll get this cheaper torch, or if you can spend the extra like 40 quid to get a better torch, it does pay off in the long run, but it's tied up to your own finances, I guess. I think we test things in such reliable areas. Reliability is something that we're very well known for. Any problems with service as well, we deal with it in-house in Cardiff. So you talk to us, it's not an email system. So you will be talking to us, which is good. And again, the lighting is very reliable. We don't have that many issues in terms of our products, which is very good to see. It makes our life a lot easier.
I have a pretty old headlamp, and it was really interesting to see just how far they've come. While we're not into the dark nights yet, it soon will be, and if you're a keen walker, a headlamp is definitely a useful piece of kit. I never really thought about it before, but now if it is pitch black outside, I always wear mine. Of course, it's been a while since I used it, so goodness knows where it is. Next, we're talking about extremes. Everywhere seems to be experiencing wild and weird weather conditions, and every year it would appear that the highest temperature records are tumbling. So what can you do about high temperatures? To find out, we had a conversation about Arizona with 360 Adventures owner Bruce Leadbetter, who has been working in the outdoors industry in the Southwest for many years now. So we had a conversation on heat, altitude, and there are tons of helpful tips that apply wherever you are. Just because it's Arizona doesn't mean the info is only valid there. It applies to anywhere hot. And so it's a very useful and entertaining conversation. First, I asked Bruce about 360 Adventures.
So 360 Adventures is kind of a combination of a guide service and travel concierge. We started off in 1992 as a guide service. So we guide rock climbing, mountain biking, hiking, backpacking, canyoneering. And over the years, we made some relationships with a bunch of other vendors and outfitters. And around the 2009 timeframe, we started realizing that people are calling us for all kinds of stuff that we don't do. And we decided that we would go ahead and kind of, shift focus a little bit to handling reservations for other companies as well. And so now, fast forward to 2025, and we still guide our stuff and we refer business to other great partners in the area.
And I know we do have listeners right across North America as well as Europe. So if you're from that area, you know what Arizona's like. But I think a lot of people think Arizona is just desert and nothing else. So what kind of outdoor activities are there in Arizona?
So when I looked at the question, I tried to think of activities that we have, and it's easier to list activities we don't. The only thing I can think of that we don't have that you might have in other places is deep sea fishing. I mean, that's the only thing we don't have. There's, mountain biking, there's balloons, there's helicopter tours, there's, paddle boarding, there's water sports, there's ground tours, there's scenic tours, there's culinary tours. I can't think of a thing that you can offer in another location. I'm sure there's got to be something, but I can't think of another location that might have something that we don't, other than deep sea fishing or scuba diving. Actually, we do have scuba diving here, believe it or not. Though there's a couple lakes that are pretty darn clear. And so I guess deep sea fishing is the only thing I can think of.
Definitely more to Arizona than a lot of people think, I guess.
There really is. Yeah, we've got so many different elevations and biomes. We've got every single biome other than the alpine. Oh, actually, we do have alpine. What's a Hudsonian zone, I think is what it is. I can't remember, but there are so many different places, things you can do. You can get caught in a snowstorm in the summer here, believe it or not. So again, I think the desert misconception comes from some of the cartoons where it's just desolate and, a roadrunner is being chased by a coyote. The desert is actually a pretty fragile environment. It has to, deal with lack of water as a resource, but it's still a pretty fragile environment. And it's definitely, it's got its own, things to look at and taste and see. So that's for sure.
You mentioned the fact that it can snow in Arizona pretty much any time, and I've experienced that myself. But is there good awareness both regionally and nationally of the different conditions that you can get in Arizona?
So that one's kind of a mixed bag. There are some awarenesses, but we still have natural selection is still out there. It's looking for you. The woods are beautiful. They want you to enjoy it, but they will try to kill you. It will try to kill you. And unless you are very aware, then you can get caught off guard. In fact, from 2023 to this year, the number one demographic for rescues in the desert are locals. And so it's not that they know what's going on and, the locals are used to the heat. We just recently had a rescue of 11 people with a bunch of kids on a trail that was closed. And so while search and rescue incidents are technically down in the Phoenix area, and the reason is because the Phoenix Parks has implemented a closed trail system. So less people are on the mountain, but there's still people out there that disregard. And those 11 people that were rescued were on a closed trail in the middle of the day in summer. And so, yes, it's becoming, more widely recognized that search and rescue exists, but it's a double-edged sword. People realize that, hiking in the heat might not be the best idea, but now they're also realizing that search and rescue will come and get you. It's not really changing the attitudes of many people. Not all, but some people just don't get the message.
I mean, I assume it varies from state to state, but who pays for that? Is it the people that get rescued, or is it the state, or?
No, so each municipality has their own search and rescue team, mostly funded by the state. And the overwhelming majority of the individuals on these search and rescue teams are volunteers. And so I guess I don't say victims, but the hapless hikers tend to not have to pay. Now, if there is a private helicopter or the trip from the trailhead, so search and rescue will get you to a trailhead, and then an ambulance will take you to the hospital if you need it. You'll pay for that ambulance ride. But the actual search and rescue, no, they're not paid for by the hiker themselves.
All right. Does the state do any kind of awareness campaigns or programs, or?
The state, not so much. It's pretty much up to the municipalities or the cities or the counties or the national parks. So, for example, the Grand Canyon this time of year has, warnings as you go down. So the rim of the Grand Canyon is at 7,200 feet or so, and it's beautiful. And it gets into the low 90s occasionally, which isn't bad. But then as you hike down, it'll get into the Phoenix temperatures. And they have signs all over the place. City of Phoenix has signs and has closed mountain trails when there's a heat advisory. So the state really doesn't handle it. Each municipality or county does if they need to.
Are there any misconceptions that you as a professional in this field have to address about hiking in either high heat conditions or at altitude?
So the high heat one, yes. We often get people that say, well, I don't mind the heat. And it's supposedly a dry heat out here. So I was stationed out east, and 90 degrees with 90% humidity is miserable. It really is. And it has fatal consequences if you don't pay attention to it. But in Arizona, it's not just the dry heat, it's the heat and the direct sunlight, which is fatal. But you'll still die at 107 degrees, 110 degrees if you don't have a way to cool yourself. And so, yes, there's a big misconception of people coming out saying they love the heat. My answer is, well, for the safety of our guests and our guides, we don't do hikes in the middle of the day. And we disappoint some people, but it's not a resume builder to get somebody killed because they want to hike in the heat.
Very true. Yeah. What would you say are the tips for dealing with extreme conditions?
I did not talk about the high elevation stuff. The high elevation does have its that was my fault. I didn't continue. High elevations have their own set of criteria as well. The higher you go, and I guess high elevation kind of depends on who you're talking to. Somebody from Death Valley thinks that 5,000 feet is higher elevation. And the higher you go, the more impact it does have on people. But when I think of high elevation, I think of 10,000 plus. And once you get up into that environment, then you do have other conditions you have to deal with. Less oxygen, weather patterns that aren't predictable. So, for example, I said that you could get caught in a snowstorm in the summer here in the Flagstaff area. That's on the top of the peaks at 12,633 feet. It creates its own weather. So you need to consider the implications of higher elevations. And, when you have pulmonary issues, then you need to be aware of it. And the things that a person needs to and I'm going to go ahead and now answer your second condition, any considerations. It's as you hike in the heat or higher elevations, you need to be aware of the signs that are happening to you. So, for the heat stuff, start early, start super early. I'm talking, the butt crack of dawn, be there, as the sun is coming up, because as soon as in the Phoenix area, as soon as, you hit 9 o'clock in the morning, you're already at 100 degrees. We have low temperatures in the Phoenix area in the 90s. And we always talk about it being a dry heat, and it's nothing like the East Coast, but we do have humidity in the 20, 30s, and 40% sometimes. And when you're talking about 105, 107, 110 degrees with that type of humidity, it takes a toll. Make sure you're hydrated. You wouldn't believe how dehydrated most of us really are, even at the cellular level. It takes a lot of time and effort and liquid consumption to properly hydrate. Bring water with you. I have seen so many people hiking on desert trails with the little, 16-ounce bottle of water, and they say they're going to do a 4-mile loop. And a couple times I have said, well, what kind of car do you have in the parking lot? Why do you care? Well, because when I tell search and rescue to look for you, they're going to want to know if your car is still in the parking lot, because they're going to come for you. Being prepared, hydration, and then clothing. Everyone thinks, I want shorts and short sleeve shirts. If you ever go to the Middle East, you'll notice that they have longer clothing and long sleeves. It's, again, not just the temperature, it's the direct sunlight. In a humid environment, you can feel the sweat, you can feel the condensation on your skin, but in an arid environment like the Phoenix area, you can't feel yourself sweating because it evaporates before it even hits. By the time it hits the surface of your skin, it's already evaporated. And so people think, I'm not sweating. So just be aware of that kind of stuff. And this kind of goes into hiking no matter what, whether it's, bad elevations or whatever, but know your route. Have the 10 essentials in your pack. Be prepared. The information is out there. It's not like we don't have, a little device in our hands that have more computing power than the Apollo 13 mission with every single known fact at our fingertips. So know your route, have a map, and adjust expectations. This goes back to the environmental awareness. If you start feeling a little dizzy or a little hot, that right there is the beginning of you going into heat-related illnesses. And if that happens, don't think that you need to finish this hike. Now, obviously, don't be the person that swims 3/4 away across the ocean and turns around because you got tired. Know your route, and if you're almost at the trailhead, then go there. Recently, we had a 60-year-old lady who died 1/4 mile from the trailhead as she was coming back. We also had a YouTube influencer who died a couple hundred yards from the trailhead. Listen to your body. Be aware of what's happening. Don't think that the heat won't get you. It will get anybody. It will get anybody. And it'll also get the search and rescue personnel that are coming out to find you or retrieve you. So those are kind of the things to be aware of in these, I don't want to say toxic, but harsh environments. You're not going to, die of heat from hiking up to 12,000 feet, but you might die of hypothermia. You start off at, 8,000 feet, and it's beautiful. If you didn't bring one layer of clothing to just help you, or a rain shell, it could get you. So people have died in 70-degree weather because of hypothermia. So be aware of those things.
And I guess once you get pretty high up as well, the sun exposure is great as well. So that's another factor that people don't think of.
Those rays actually are more intense the higher you go.
You mentioned some of those cases of people having to be rescued due to heat. Oh, is that happening more, or is it just that we're hearing about it more?
So the trends, we had a record number of rescues in 2023. As a result, I'm talking the city of Phoenix right now. As a result, the city of Phoenix implemented a closed trail system when there's heat warnings, and it's been debated. And some people are saying, "Well, we're locals, we can handle it." The locals are the ones getting rescued. And the Grand Canyon, for example, they have over 400 rescues a year. Some of them technical, but most of them are people who underestimated the challenge of hiking down and then back up and the heat. And so I wouldn't say that there's a downward trend. I would say that we're leveling off when it comes to rescues in the Phoenix area, but it should be dropping because we're closing trails. And all these awareness campaigns, I guess they might be keeping the upward trend to a minimum. But if you look at the totality of the circumstances, I really don't think that it's getting better, honestly. I really don't. And there's a couple factors that I like to, point fingers at. Influencers these days are taking pictures. They're painting these locations as beautiful and serene, and they're wearing yoga stuff, which I don't, have a problem with. But they're under presenting the dangers of outside. So it'll surprise you. So just be prepared for nature to change its mind about you. That's all.
And if people do get into difficulty, what should they do? Because you already mentioned the fact that, and we've experienced this in Nevada, you come across people that are either lost or in trouble, and they say, should we turn back? And they're already closer to where they started than if they go back again. So, and often there's no cell phone coverage. So what's the best thing for people to do?
So that's very situational. It depends on, who you've got with you. If you're a bunch of new hikers that are unaware of stuff, the best thing you can do is to stay in place. If you get, and here's where I kind of get back to know your body and adjust your expectations. There's this got to finish, got to do it, persevere, overcome, conquer mentality in a lot of people hiking and stuff. And they aren't willing to forego the summit in order to save themselves. And so that type of mentality gets a lot of people killed or in bad situations. If you're hiking by yourself, be aware of the situation, be aware of your route, know where you are. Having no cell service is a bummer. It's getting better, but if you are with a group and you are feeling, I guess, challenged, then do everything you can to maintain your body temperature, whether it's hypothermia or hyperthermia. Maintain your body temperature. And this is the only time I ever suggest that you might split up, because in other cases, don't. Quick question to the hikers. Did you tell somebody where you're going, the route, and when you should be back? And if you've got two people, it's just you two, then hopefully you told somebody, because if nobody knows, they're not coming for you. If it's a remote trail, then the possibility of somebody coming and finding you in time is low. So the best plan is to be prepared. That really is it. And so if you do find yourself in a situation, then you need to assess. And again, depending on the situation, make some decisions. You don't have to make the perfect decision. You just have to make a good one. That's all.
And what about conditions? Are they changing? Is climate change happening, or is it affecting conditions in Arizona?
Absolutely. Climate change is real. Man had a hand in it. Part of its nature, part of its nurture, I suppose. But absolutely, we are seeing record temperatures. Last summer in the Phoenix area, they had a record number of days over 1 billion degrees, apparently. I can't remember if it was above 110 or above 115. When I grew up in the Phoenix area, I don't even remember talking about 115 degrees. It was way different. And so not only is the climate creating higher temperatures around here, but our heat island, we have more concrete than trees. And so the combination of human influence and absolutely climate change is making an impact on the environment. I used to say, well, it's going to be subtle. It's not really that subtle anymore. The highs are higher. They last longer. We're not seeing the colds like we used to. 10 years ago, there's areas in the Flagstaff area, there's sections or places in the Flagstaff area that would still be under snow, but it's completely gone. And so it's changing a lot. It really is. And personal awareness of the situation, whether climate change is helping or not, you're there that day. You're not there 10 years ago. You're not there 5 years from now. And so you're there that day. So be aware of what's going to happen that day. We have the best weather apps that are available that are, you can look that up and pinpoint that. Now, granted, weathermen, meteorologists and politicians are the only job that you can consistently be wrong and still keep your job. But they're not that far off. The meteorologists, that is, they're not that far off. So just be aware of locations and just know that you're going to be there that day.
Are you seeing more people coming to you to adjust what they're doing, finding activities that avoid heat or adjusting vacation times to when it's cooler?
So yes, there is a large trend. We're discovering there is a larger trend of people that are adjusting their travel. So, we used to have a large summer component of travelers. Most of them were overseas. The Germans are famous for loving the heat. And so we used to get a big influx of Germans during the summer months. It's dropping a lot. And the trends are showing that people are enjoying the resorts. They're enjoying the indoor museums. They're enjoying the swimming pools. They're doing water sports, whether it's rafting or tubing or kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding. A lot more people are doing that. We still get the people that say we don't mind the heat, and we have to, we don't paint it beautifully. We say, no, we're not going to take you out there. It's highly likely, it's highly possible that we could die or be a rescue incident. So we're not going to do it. And so we do have to put our foot down to some people, but it's fewer and fewer these days of people asking to do the physical activities in the afternoon in the Fenix outside. So, but it is changing, yes.
As far as adventures go, then what do you recommend for people who still want adventure but don't want to be in the heat? You already mentioned the water sports.
So water sports, yes. Early morning stuff. It's still warm. Just be aware of it. Be hydrated. Don't be hungover. Or go to higher elevation. You mentioned earlier that people think that Arizona is one big, huge tumbleweed desert, and it's not. It's got so many different, diverse eco environments that coming up to the Flagstaff or even Payson or higher elevation stuff. Or I hate to say this because my income depends on it. Go to places that aren't as hot. If you don't want to go to Flagstaff, if you have to go to Scottsdale or Phoenix, come in November and leave at the end of April, because April's still beautiful next to a pool. So I would just say, kind of adjust your expectations for doing adventurous stuff outside in the desert during the summer, or adjust your expectations and don't go trying to climb Humphreys Peak in the winter. Both of those are pretty challenging. Having been doing this for most of my adult life, it really does kind of come naturally to me to adjust how I'm going to behave outside. Being in my 50s now, I don't want to be a rescue situation. I don't want to be, especially when they say a professional guide rescued in the summer in the heat. The only thing I would suggest to people going anywhere, whether it's Phoenix, Flagstaff, Canada, Vancouver, Ireland, Scotland, is do a lot of research. The information is out there, and geek out on the information, because there are some beautiful things to learn about Phoenix in the summer. Lack of water as a resource. Of the 5,500 species native to the Sonoran Desert, every single one of them has to deal with lack of water as a resource. And so they've over time, learned how to handle it. So instead of going into a challenging or deadly environment thinking, I'm going to conquer this, think, how can I and should I? And don't be afraid to hire a professional guide, because we do know the answers, and it's in our best interest to keep you safe. You can't really send your Instagram photos out there if you pass away. So we want those photos out there, and we want you to say, wow, I can't believe I learned about the creosote bush in the Sonoran Desert.
Well, I hope you learned something about heat there. I'm currently reading a book about a hike across the mountains of Europe, written by Nick Crane. And while it's a completely different subject, when Bruce was talking about not being a hero, I immediately thought of Nick's book and his description of giving up climbing the Matterhorn while just a few meters from the top. I know that sounds completely insane, but knowing when to turn back and being smart enough to do it and not follow your ego could be the difference between life and death. After we stopped the recording, Bruce and I chatted about some of our own encounters in the desert with unprepared walkers. I've witnessed it many times, but Bruce has pretty much seen it all, probably 10 times. Anyway, that's it for another podcast. I am hoping for a weekend of walks and filming, but you never know, it probably won't happen, especially seeing as one of the days it's supposed to be rainy. But I do love being out there, even though it slows you down and it can be a pain walking with a backpack full of recording gear. If you have news or suggestions for podcast guests, please do get in touch through jim@walkingpost.com. So I hope you enjoyed this week's walkingpost.com podcast, and I hope you have a great week, hopefully with a walk somewhere, even if it's just a short one avoiding the heat. So until next time, happy trails! Walking Post from walkingpost.com is an Air Coastal Media Limited production.